Hey, Coach. Thanks for joining this episode of Simple Coach to Coach. I am super excited to have you on board.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, so I, I am. I think I have to send you a trophy. I think I have to send you something, maybe a plaque. Um, you are the first West Coast coach to hop on board to do an interview, to subject yourself to the intense grilling that I do to coaches. So I'm really super grateful for this. Really, really do appreciate. And I know coordinating times is a little bit difficult, but yeah, I'm super, as you guys would say out there, stoked for this. So hey, I can be
Yeah,
California.
there you go.
Um, all right, so just maybe a good starting point, or like a good starting point is where I like to start. But you've been at CalTech since 2021,
Correct. Yeah.
and
So this
right,
this fall was
yeah,
my second season here.
second season, yeah. So this upcoming will be your
hmm
third. Um, what what's sort of been your soccer journey, and how did you end up at CalTech? Because I think you were out in the cold environs of Minnesota. Well, it's cold there. At least you got some snow, but
Right.
um,
Yeah. Yeah. So my path, like you said, I've been here at Caltech for 2 years now. I've been really enjoying it. Previously, I had been coaching at Beloit College in southern Wisconsin in the Midwest Conference.
Wisconsin.
So yeah, like you said, quite a change of environment. Um, yeah, loved my time at Beloit. It's actually my alma mater as well. So I played there for 4 years. Played for an absolutely terrific coach, Tim Schmeeken, who has been at Beloit for a long, long time. I think coached 26 seasons there. He's the winningest coach in the conference's history, and just a phenomenal person. Loved playing for him. Shortly after graduating, was lucky enough to come back as an assistant coach for Tim. At the time, he was actually in a dual role of head coach and athletic director. And he said, "Hey, I'll do both jobs if I can hire a full time assistant." So that worked out perfectly for me. Had a couple of years working under Tim. It was really, really good, in terms of giving me a lot of freedom, but also guidance and support. Until 2016, it was that he said, "Hey, I can no longer do two full time jobs. I'm going to step back to just the AD role. Um, I want to offer you the head position if you want." And it was kind of a dream come true to coach the program, where
Mhm.
I played, that had meant so much to me. Um, and yeah, really, really enjoyed being at Beloit. It was hard to leave. But the opportunity out here at Caltech was really exciting. You said that I'm one of the first guys from the West Coast that you've talked to, but the SCIAC is a really, really strong conference. I thought the level of soccer
Mhm.
was a step up from the Midwest Conference, which, even though that meant that wins are more challenging and we're playing better teams, that was really exciting. Just playing at a higher
Mhm.
level of soccer was something I was really looking forward to. Being closer to some family in the area, yeah, and coaching players in a really unique academic environment as well. Get to work with some
Yeah.
some really really impressive young men.
Yeah. Yeah. We're definitely going to talk on that because I always say, like, in Division 3, there are three schools, right, academically, that are just the pinnacle of the pinnacle: Johns Hopkins, MIT, and Caltech. And I think those are, yeah. So I put you in that category. So what what was it about Caltech? And I just sort of went historically, and Caltech hasn't, and there could be a whole set of circumstances, and I'd like to dive into, like, it hasn't been a powerhouse, a soccer powerhouse, and you're going from Wisconsin to Pasadena. You mentioned family, but what was it about Caltech that you were like, you know what, this is a place where, maybe it's a commitment from the school to into athletics. I don't know what that is, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, maybe you could provide some color there.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that I saw, kind of from the outset when I was looking at the position and looking at Caltech athletics, and that also started to get driven home as I got further in the process and was talking to the current players,
Mm-hmm.
was the upward trajectory of CalTech athletics as a whole, that I think,
Mm-hmm.
has been going on in the last 5, 10 years. And I think there's a number of reasons for that. I do think that, our athletic director has done a lot to, make athletics more of a priority at the school.
Mm-hmm.
And make it something that we take pride in and that we're, pushing for greater levels of
Mm-hmm.
success. So our AD, Betsy Mitchell, has been here for about 10 years. And I think that, again, her timing here has kind of coincided with a lot of teams starting to trend in the right
Mm-hmm.
direction. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and, seeing some of the other coaches in the department, seeing some of the other things they've been able to accomplish. And then, like I said, speaking to the players on the men's soccer team during the
Mm-hmm.
interview process and getting to
Mm-hmm.
meet them, getting to, spend quite a bit of time with them during my final interview out here on campus. It was very clear that, okay, yes, this is a group of guys who, a lot is asked of them academically. They're very focused on, their research and the types of things they're
Mm-hmm.
doing here, but they also care a hell of a lot about the soccer,
Mm-hmm.
program here, about, achieving more, pushing each other to get
Mm-hmm.
further. And, that drive was something that I was really excited to be a part of and work with guys
Mm-hmm.
who did want to take CalTech soccer to the next level.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't that's the part that I like to hear because you don't hear that, right? Or you don't see it as much as like the commitment of these guys, right? At the Division 3 level. It doesn't matter whether they're number 1 or 420, whatever it is. Like it doesn't matter. They're so committed to what they're doing. It's just remarkable. All right, so was there anything you did that maybe wasn't done before at Caltech when you first became the head coach? And if so, what are those things?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I brought, elements of my experiences, playing for Coach Meekin at Beloit, a lot of things that he did well, and then a lot of things that I then adapted, in my time as the head coach at Beloit. I do think that the coach prior to me here at Caltech, his name was Phil Murray. I think he did a lot of really, really good things. And I think that, I
Mm-hmm.
talked about kind of the overall athletic department trending upwards with our AD. I think
Mm-hmm.
that Phil did a lot to kind of start pushing the needle and start getting Caltech soccer moving in the right direction, start to make them more
Mm-hmm.
competitive in the SCIAC. It's a
Mm-hmm.
slow process. I think that, in my eyes, the biggest difference of, when I came in was just kind of getting the guys to understand the realities of what, things need to look like for a successful college soccer program out of season. Because I
Mm-hmm.
think that, again, our players show tremendous dedication and work ethic, and particularly in season, I can never doubt the effort
Mm-hmm.
that they put in. I think there just wasn't necessarily as much of a structure or, kind of expectations about what needs to be done year round to push for that
Mm-hmm.
next level and to be competing with,
Yeah.
teams in the sky that are, regionally or nationally ranked. And I've been
Mm-hmm.
really excited to see some of our upperclassmen kind of latching onto that and helping establish those higher expectations for, the classes that
Mm-hmm.
we have coming in.
Yeah. You definitely have the right type of student athlete for that, right? Where I'm assuming, right, like just because it's Caltech, these guys are hyper motivated in whatever they decide to do, and so if you're pointing them in a direction, they're going to go full on to do whatever is asked of them. So just because I think that's the nature of them, right? They're super disciplined. Obviously, they wouldn't be there if they didn't.
Right.
We mentioned the SCIAC a couple times, the Southern California Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, and I think everyone's familiar with Redlands and Chapman and Claremont Mud Scripts, which is still having a little a couple
Right.
issues. But maybe you could talk about it from your perspective, and yeah, that where you're coming from versus where you're at now, just to yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, that was something that was really appealing about the job in the first place was, the feeling that the SCIAC is an extremely high level conference. Yeah, you talked about Redlands has been very successful. Previously CMS, like you said, not the season they wanted this year with some things going on, but very, very good team. Yeah, Chapman won the conference and went to the national tournament this year. But I think that, top to bottom, it's very, very strong. Especially this year, I think we saw that anybody could beat anyone on any given day. You have Whittier pulling an upset over Redlands. You have Laverne getting a big surprise win over Oxy. We one of our results that we were happy about was a good 3-3 draw with Chapman at home on Senior Day.
Hmm.
We had the
Yeah.
lead 3-1, really hoping to hold on to all three
Hmm.
points, but again, that's a team that won the
Hmm.
league and went to the national tournament, and it was the first time I think in CalTech history that we had gotten a result against a team that was in the top 25 at the time. So it is really competitive top to bottom, and yeah, teams like Pomona, teams like Kowloon, also very, very strong.
Hmm. Do, w- I don't know if these are the right words, so I apologize. It is. I mean, do you compete with them from a recruiting perspective? Are you swimming in the same pool as them, or is it just because of the nature of Caltech that you have a different you have a different pool to swim in
Yeah,
from recruiting?
right.
Yeah,
I think, as you're alluding to, recruiting at Caltech is pretty unique. The pool of players that we're looking at who are going to be outstanding soccer players who are going to push the program forward, but also academically qualified for what our admissions office
yeah,
is looking for. Yeah, it's very different than most schools. You kind of talked about earlier us, MIT, Johns Hopkins being the most
yeah,
similar. And yeah, almost every recruit
yeah,
I talk to is also looking at, those types of schools, MIT, Hopkins, maybe
yeah,
a Carnegie Mellon. Um,
yeah.
in our conference, I'll get a little bit of overlap with some of the Claremont schools. Harvey
Hmm.
Mudd from CMS in particular, because they're also kind of a
Yeah,
science and engineering program.
yeah.
Um, but outside of those schools in the conference, we don't really have a whole lot of overlap in terms of recruits, other than
Hmm.
Pomona, Claremont, and Mudd.
Hmm. Um, so where do you recruit from? I mean, is anywhere in the continental or in um, in the United States open to you? Like some schools are tend to be regional, but I would think just because of your nature that you're able to pick and choose from farther away. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we definitely do get interest, and we get players from all over the country, as well as we have a couple international guys on the team right now. And in terms of
Hmm.
kind of you asked where we recruit from, it's kind of wherever those guys are, the guys who are
Yeah.
terrific soccer players who also are interested in a Caltech education, and who have the qualifications to get here. So for example, this incoming class, our 2023 class. We've got 9 guys coming in. Six of them are California. Um,
Hmm.
and then we've got New Jersey, we've got Georgia, and we've got Ohio. Last year
Hmm.
we had a couple California guys and a forward from Texas.
Hmm.
I would say that California is probably the school that we get the most interest from, just
Most
because,
right.
yeah, you
Yeah.
have people who are very, very familiar, with Caltech as an institution. It's also easier for us to go and see those players play at Surf Cup and MLS Next Winterfest and things like that.
Right.
Um, but certainly, yeah, we get interest from and have brought in players from all over the country.
Hmm. Yeah, like I said, you would draw interest. It's no surprise. Do you by chance off the top of your head the kid from New Jersey? Do you know where he plays?
So
Club ball?
his club team is STA. Plays for their,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
High school, I'm not 100. I want to say Livingston. Um,
Hmm.
yeah.
Wow. STA is like 30 minutes, 40 minutes from my
Oh,
house,
okay. There
so
you go.
very familiar with the
Yeah.
club. Maybe I'll go scout.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'll go give you a heads up, do a little write up beforehand. Like, yeah, this got to work on his left. You, I, again, because of your uniqueness, I mean, do you look at it like you have this is a challenge from a recruiting perspective, or does it really just allow you to focus your mind on? Because you already know. I mean, I know you want me to play for you, but I know just talking to me, you're like, he's not going to academically qualify. so I'm not even going to bother.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think every school you're going to be at has its own unique recruiting challenges and benefits. And yeah, you could view being at CalTech as really challenging because the potential pool of players we're working with is just smaller in terms of the amount of
Hmm.
guys who are going to have the academic background to be competitive for admission. Um, but I think one of the big benefits and things that makes it easier is it's also a relatively self-selecting audience in that those guys who are
Hmm.
playing at a very high level and also are a Caltech type of student, they're more likely to seek us out and get on our
Hmm.
radar.
Yeah.
So I mean, we
Yeah.
had a tremendous freshman class this year. We had two guys who were both all conference. We had the conference newcomer of the year. We had the only freshman to be first team all SCIAC, and both of those
Hmm.
guys they initially reached out to me. So that
Hmm.
self-selecting nature helps, and it also means that when I go to Surf Cup or when I go to MLS Next Fest, I'm not trying to watch 40 different games in a day and reach out to
Yeah.
200 people. I already have
Yeah.
all right, these are the 15 guys that I've been in touch with that I know are real potential, Caltech student athletes, and I'm going to
Yeah.
focus on them and seeing, hey, who's right for our program.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. And in some respects, and I say the same thing about places like Tufts, these really high academic schools, um, St. Olaf, right? It just sort of gets rid of, I don't want to say the noise, right? Because but right, there's certain standards, and I don't know of an admissions department that is very loose with their admissions standards just because they were soccer players, right?
Right.
I just think that it does, like I said, does focus. All right, so now about your season, right? You went 3-8-2. Give me your assessment of your season, being that it is your third. It was your third official season.
Yeah. So second, actually, at Caltech.
Second, second,
Yeah.
second. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
second. Sorry.
And yeah,
Yeah.
for me, there were a lot of exciting things about the season. Obviously, we're still not quite, hey, getting the number of wins, that we hope to in the future.
Hmm.
But again, I think that we saw this year um, the most competitive that Caltech has been within the SCIAC.
Hmm.
And playing really well against good, elite teams in this area. We talked about the draw with Chapman that easily could have been
Yeah.
all 3 points at home. Had really, really good matches with CMS, who, if they did finish their season, I think they probably would have been the top team in the conference.
Hmm.
Really good match up at Occidental, who was one of the elite teams in the conference, finished second. Um, and I think it was really important for our guys to see, CMS, for example, they beat us pretty handily in 2021.
Hmm.
And for us to be,
Hmm.
tied 1-1 for the vast majority of the game and just give up, a late goal on a set piece, but to be right there with, a team that last year didn't lose a game in all of Division 3
Hmm.
in the regular season,
Yeah.
it showed guys we are on the verge of being at that level. And it showed guys,
Yeah.
what we are capable of accomplishing. And I think we talked earlier about kind of establishing the expectations for what things look like year round and out of season. I think that, you know, the bits and pieces that we were able to achieve this year are now giving guys a lot more belief and understanding of what we can achieve as long as we continue to do the right things. So, for me,
Yeah.
this season was very much the start, of what we hope are a lot of good things to come.
Yeah. Yeah, because that your first year, right? Did I read that right? You started in, I don't know, you got hired in June. Like it
Correct.
was late in the cycle, right? So there's probably that first year. I don't want to say you didn't have an impact, right? I'm sure you did, but in terms of owning the program, it was probably like, this is what I have, so I'm just going to do whatever I can,
Hmm.
right? And so this last season was probably your first real one. Um, I'm gonna. I don't know if this is. I think it's accurate. I did my statistics for not statistical people like myself. So in 2022, you scored, of the last 3 years, you scored the most goals, and you allowed the least amount of
Hmm.
goals. And that to me is sort of like, wins and lo- I always say wins and losses come when you do the other stuff right? Like you can't control that, but so that was the first thing I noticed is that you scored 17, you allowed 34, right? And you basically doubled the amount of goals from the previous
Right.
year, and you let in five fewer goals. So there is a trajectory of a start, right? Like that's that's pretty impressive, right? Because something like I said, the wins will come if you keep working on that stuff, right? Um, I guess I'd ask you where do you think you're further along with what do you think you're further along now with what you know than when you first started out, where you're like, how far do I have to go to get to this spot? Did that make sense? That was a complete jumble of a question, but
I think so. What you're talking about knowing more compared to when I started at CalTech or started kind of coaching in
correct,
general.
correct. No, CalTech. I
Okay.
was just sort of reference
Yeah.
points. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, like I said, in the interview process, did my best to get to know as much as possible about not only our team, but about the athletic department as a
Mm-hmm.
whole. Really spent a
Mm-hmm.
lot of time talking to the other coaches. Um, but you can only learn so much until you're right in the thick of it, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that, yeah, I had a pretty good understanding and was very excited, to jump right in with this group. But absolutely, I think that I have, a much better grasp now on just a lot of things in terms of, hey, what the reality of the day to day life of our student athletes here is like, because as we've
Mm-hmm.
alluded to, it's pretty unique compared to a lot of other schools.
Yeah. Yeah.
For
Yeah.
example, I think that I have a much better grasp on the recruiting sense of being able to, up front pretty quickly determine, all right, who amongst these players that we're looking at that are reaching out are going to be in the right competitive
Yeah.
ballpark for admissions. And that's
Yeah.
something that again the other coaches in our department have been extremely helpful. We have some people here who've been at CalTech for a while and are really experienced and picking their brain and going to them and hey, bringing a kid and saying what do you think about this kid. Um, has been really helpful and I think has been one of the reasons why we've been able to have two really successful recruiting years already. Like I said, this year's
Mm-hmm.
freshmen, you know, some of the best players that I think the program has seen. And we've got a group of 9 guys coming in next year that I think are also going to do quite a lot to raise the level that we're really excited about.
Mm-hmm. Um, I just thought of this. Are there any? I don't want to say rules, but are there any rules that are particular to Caltech about the student athletes that obviously they're there for school,
Mhm.
but do you have anything like that? I know the only reason why is because the Ivy Leagues they have their own different set of rules, and so does the NESCAC. Is there anything like that for you,
Right.
or?
Yeah. So we align by kind of normal SCIAC and NCAA rules. I know the
Mm-hmm.
NESCAC, yeah, they start so much later and, have
Later,
different
yeah.
situation regarding non-traditional season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're able to do full non-traditional segments. So, 5 weeks
Mm-hmm.
in the spring, that's something I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah.
Spring practices last year were really, really good. And again,
Mm-hmm.
I think it just showed that, yeah, our guys are willing and exciting to put in that work, just having an understanding of kind of, hey, what does it take to be
Mm-hmm.
successful at this level? As long as we know and we're equipped, we're going to do it. But yeah, so there's
Mm-hmm.
no restrictions different to us in terms of what
Yeah.
the non-traditional
Yeah.
looks like.
Yeah. Now, this is like the trouble question for you because this is recorded and it's early and I get that, right? Like, well, hopefully we can connect again in the summer and have this discussion a little bit more in depth, but what sort of expectations are you now having for the fall? Right? You're showing this progress, right, in right direction. You're getting guys committed, they're getting bought in. You're starting your recruiting, like having your imprint on the recruiting process. Like what? I mean, are you looking at? Hey, let's get to 6 wins. I don't know what it is,
Yeah.
like 6 wins, or is it let's keep knocking down the amount of goals. Let's make it really hard for other teams to score. I don't know that which might be legit.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's something that, I certainly have, my kind of ideas and notions of, things that I want to see from the group, what I think we can achieve. That's also a process that we involve the players in, in
Hmm.
terms of some goal setting and some standard setting, at the beginning of preseason. We always
Hmm.
end up with, kind of 3 to 5 primary goals that the players themselves are a big part of establishing. And so, for
Hmm.
example, this year, we talked about, well, we want to improve both our points total and our, table finish. You talked a
Hmm.
lot about the statistical points, so we had set some
Yeah.
statistical, metrics as well of, we want to take X many, shots on goal per game and,
Hmm.
concede X number of shots on goal per game and all those things in addition to, goals scored and conceded. A lot of those metrics were up, which was really exciting to see. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I definitely, feel strongly that one of our goals is going to be to again finish with a higher SCIAC points total and improve our SCIAC finish in the table.
Hmm.
And I'm excited to include the guys as well in kind of figuring out what specific other metrics they want to add into that evaluation. But I think there's no reason that we can't expect that to be very realistic. It is a challenge because, like I said, every single team in this conference not only is strong, but we know they're going to be working to get better next year. Um, but yeah, again, this year I think we showed that we can compete with anyone with the best teams in the conference. So, I think having that expectation of, you know, more points than last year, hopefully higher in the
Hmm.
table, is very, very realistic.
I'm just looking at some of the scores. Like you're goal away, right? On one, two, three, four. I'll say five. Like there's 5 games that you could have, and I don't not having watched,
Right.
right? I'm just doing the
Yeah.
numbers. Like there's probably 5 games there that if you're on the right side of the scoreboard, your season looks dramatically, or at least the record just looks dramatically different, right? You go from 3 to 8 and whatever it was, three. Yeah, you're 8-3-2, right?
Right.
Or 8-3. Like that's yeah, big difference, big difference. So this is totally random, but I just thought of it. Like there's and I'm reminded by it because I just saw it yesterday or today on anti-social media. The you ever see that map of Division 3 schools, right? Like they put the
Yeah.
the markers down, and it's like the like that northeast like that upper quarter is just jam packed of dots, and then it thins out, and then there's a gap between Colorado College and
Yeah.
California, and then you see the dots. Like, is it a challenge for you guys from a scheduling perspective? You obviously have your conference games, but out of conference, does that make it a challenge for you to find games?
Yeah, a little bit. Because like in California, so there's our conference. The only other D3 school is
Mm-hmm.
Santa Cruz up north. They do come down and
Right.
play a lot of SCIAC teams, and then there's
Mm-hmm.
the Pacific Northwest Conference.
Right, all the way
Yeah,
up, right?
right,
Seattle-ish,
but
Portland. Yeah,
certainly
yeah.
not drivable distance. But every I talked earlier about a lot of the things that Betsy as our AD has done to kind of
Yep.
drive the department in the right direction. Something that we're really fortunate to be able to do is every other year we're able to take a trip out of region. To play some
Oh,
teams, and
nice.
so we actually are going to go up to the Pacific Northwest and play a couple of teams. We're going to play Linfield and Lewis and Clark this upcoming fall. Um, yeah,
Nice.
the hope there is to also get some reciprocal. Hey, we came out to you. We'd love
Yeah.
to host you the next year.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's something that you see a lot of SCIAC teams doing is traveling. I know that
Mm-hmm.
CMS and Kowloon went up to play Willamette and Pacific Lutheran last year. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, like you said, there's just not as many teams around here. Whereas in the
Yeah,
Northeast or the
yeah.
Midwest, yeah, you can't throw a rock without hitting a D3 school.
Yeah, that's very true. Like, and that's why I was so pumped that you were like, "Hey, yeah, I'll talk." I didn't know if you banged your head that day when you agreed, but um, like I could get stuck here, like I could get stuck in this northeast area, and there's so much more. I have only scratched the surface going out west, but I forget who I was talking to. Was it Travis Wall?
At Olaf.
I can't remember. At St.
Hmm.
Olaf, yeah,
Yeah,
great guy. Even though he's a OU dude. Um, the he does the same thing, or somebody does the same thing where they have every other year. They don't necessarily. It's not their international trip, that they just travel a little bit further than their
right,
region so that they can get access to playing some of the really good teams, right? Like that they wouldn't necessarily have access to on a regular for whatever their scheduling purposes. And I think that's brilliant, right? Because it's easy for me in SimpleCoach headquarters, like to hit the easy button, but the cost has got to be relatively manageable, right? Like it can't be that onerous to do. I mean, granted, if you're flying somewhere, that's a different
right.
story. But yeah. That's to me is the way, I guess, the way you got to do it, right? Because I forget who I was looking at. I saw they were playing community colleges on there on it, because I think the community college system has some pretty good programs
Yeah,
out there. Um, um, but I don't know if that helps or hurts, all that when it comes to that. But I rambled. I'm
that's all
sorry.
right.
Um, See what happens. I start talking in my head, just sort of like, oh, what about that and that and that. So I'm going to totally go in the other direction. And you only had two ties, but like, do you have any thoughts on the OT rules? Is that something that um, do you like OTs, or did you like OTs, or are you glad that you don't have
Yeah,
them?
I thought it made sense to eliminate the overtime. I didn't necessarily understand in the first place why NCAA soccer did it and also did golden goal. It was kind of a just, hey, why do we do it like that? No, that's just how we do it. I think it makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways. And, I think even just last year, last game of the season, we played at Oxy, 0-0 tie after 110 minutes. I mean, we barely even had time to pick up the food we had ordered, before the restaurant closed. We had to kind of rush out of there to grab it. So I think just in terms of, the student athlete experience, in terms of, being able to, hey, get back at a more reasonable time if both us and the women are either hosting or playing at the same place, eliminating that uncertainty about when the match is going to start. Yeah, to me, it made sense.
Hmm. Yeah, I think yeah. I don't know. I go back and forth. Today's the day where I'm thinking, you know what? It's not that big of an
Yeah.
impact. I'm just the emotion guy, right? Like I just think that was the fun part of
Yeah,
it.
I will
Whether
say
you
that,
won or
yeah, winning
lost,
winning golden
yeah,
goal is a pretty special feeling, but
yeah, yeah. It doesn't matter, right? Like it's just like you won the World Cup. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter the game, if you're Tuesday in Stoke. But um, what plans? So next, not this year, but next year you get the extra practice
Mhm.
days. But what are your plans for spring? And I'm particularly interested because you are, to me, you're sort of on this up. You're building this upward trajectory, right? And so I would think all the time you get with them is really critical. So I'm wondering what is it that you have planned for the spring to sort of help with that ascent,
Yeah.
all right?
Yeah, like I said, last year spring practices were really, really productive, were really good, and I have no reason to think they won't be again this year. And the biggest reason for it was, you know, the seniors, the upperclassmen helped establish a really good atmosphere where guys knew that, hey, yes, this is non-traditional, but this is something to be taken seriously. Kind of having that view that we need to take advantage of. We have 16 practice opportunities. That's something that we need to take
Mhm.
advantage of. So I thought that last year the environment was really good, and that the upperclassmen really facilitated that. And so I'm hoping to do more of the same this year. Really in our spring practices, it's, we're not going to be doing a whole lot of team defensive shape, patterns of play, a lot of really tactical focused. It's, can we make this an extremely competitive environment where the guys are pushing each other?
Mm,
The level is high, the speed of play is high, where we're getting some good fitness out of this as well because we haven't been together. Every day, can we walk away saying everyone, got some good fitness out of this, got a lot of touches on the ball, and it was extremely competitive. I think if
right.
we can check all those three boxes every day in the spring, it's going to set up our guys well for the summer.
Yeah, yeah. I always wonder what comes first, right? And I just think you gotta build a program that's just hyper competitive. Doesn't matter, and I this hurts me, right? Like it doesn't matter so much like the tactical awareness and how do you move the ball and all those sort of things that I think when you get to a point where you can be like, hey, we just have a bunch of guys who are super competitive. Now let's see if we can't channel that competitiveness. Because if you can't compete on the field, everything it doesn't matter. Everything else doesn't matter. That's interesting, though. Say you heads going off in a million directions. Because I was as you were talking, I'm like, yeah, and I got to ask you about your field because you guys have outstanding facilities out there. For anyone who's smart enough to get in, you can play on a pretty cool place. Can I ask you? It's Northfield, right? It's the Northfield. Is that
Correct.
what it's called?
Yes.
Is it, so? There's the baseball field. Does it overlap with the soccer field? I can't find a good picture
Right.
to.
Yeah, so essentially it's, a giant turf area that has the soccer game field and then has additional space. It is, that turf area is the baseball field as well. But so
Uh huh.
during our season, essentially that space is a game field and a practice field, all soccer. So
Oh
that
yeah,
way,
yeah.
hey, us and the
Okay.
women are practicing at the same time. We've each got our own
Yeah.
field. Right now, baseball's in season, so right now, they have kind of a retractable home run fence that's set up.
Yeah. Fence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's still room in the outfield, so our guys are doing captain's practice right now. Hey, playing some
Yeah.
77, and there's room for them to do that. On days where
Yeah.
baseball doesn't have a game. So
Uh
yeah,
huh.
it is a shared space, but during the season, it really doesn't affect
Yeah. Yeah.
us.
Yeah. I was trying to figure that out because you could see like the on the one picture the field. There's like part of the soccer field is in the
Hmm.
outfield, and I don't know. Maybe it's just the way it's been raked or
Right.
whatever. But you do have. I mean, like I said, for anybody, you going out to California or you're in California, if you got the grades, you got the facilities. Like you're not gonna, no complaints there. All right. So what? So you talked a little bit about your recruiting class. What were you looking for from that class in particular? Again, sort of knowing that this is what you're trying to do is to sort of get an upward trajectory.
Yeah, yeah. So a couple things. There were a couple positions that we were prioritizing just based on kind of who we were graduating and all that. Goalkeeper was a priority position for us, given that we currently have two on the roster, and they're both going to be seniors this upcoming year. So we're actually bringing in a couple goalkeepers this year that we're quite excited about, not only to compete with our current guys, but to take the mantle once they leave. Um,
Hmm.
Also definitely wanted to bring in a center back. We've got a couple defenders that we're really, really excited about. And then just kind of in general, every single year, and like you said, hey, on the upward trajectory, you talked about how important that competitive aspect is. I want guys who have the mentality of, hey, I want to come in and do everything I can to help the team as much as
Hmm.
possible in my first year. And I want to
Hmm.
be able to get minutes and play if I can. And
Yeah.
this year we had four freshmen, and three of them started every single game. And that fourth one made big
Wow.
contributions, scored a couple goals as well.
Yeah.
And so I want
Hmm.
guys who, and the reality is that, that's not going to happen every year of having those guys come in, but I want them
Hmm.
to have that mentality of, yeah, I want to come in and compete right away. And even if that doesn't
Yeah.
mean that I'm starting, that means that I'm getting better and I'm making the team better.
Yeah. Yeah. Um. What's your what's your roster size? Or do you have like sort of a number that you sort of hover around?
Yeah, generally in kind of that right around 27, give or take a couple. This year we were at
Mm-hmm.
26. With the slightly bigger incoming class of nine, I think we're going to be at 29
Mm-hmm.
for the fall.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I think right around that 27 neighborhood is kind of what I see as ideal,
Yeah.
because I
Mm-hmm.
think it allows us to, even when you have a couple injuries, we can still go 11 aside in practice when we need to. Day before a game, we're
Mm-hmm.
playing against a team who plays a 3-5-2. We want to be able to set up a group in a 3-5-2 and talk about
Mm-hmm.
how to deal with that. Um, and but I also don't want to carry 40 guys and have, 10, 15 guys who know they're never going to see the field and who
Yeah.
maybe don't
The
feel as
field.
much
Yeah.
like they're a part of the group.
Yeah.
Where it's a core group of guys who are all really bought in, all really invested, all really competitive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm always curious about that just because of that very thing,
Mhm.
right? Like, players, yeah, 1 through 25, they, can be bought in, but then you start getting into territory where guys are just not happy, and then sort of they, not intentionally or maybe even intentionally, they become a little bit toxic for the rest of the group, and then just, so I'm always curious like what that balance is. Um Coach, hey, this was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I was going to say I feel the warmth of Cali coming my way, but I think you did get snow,
Yeah.
right? Wasn't it snowing? Yeah, yeah, I saw on
Yeah, they're the San Gabriel Mountains are just north of campus, and yeah, they're dusted with some snow
uh-huh.
right now.
Nice, nice. Oh, I'm sure you guys will find a way to use the snow like you always do, create some sport that but yeah, I really do appreciate taking the time, and sorry about all the coordination issues, just timing wise, and thank you. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah, no problem, and yeah, thanks again for having me on, and yeah, hopefully you get a chance, like you said, maybe we can catch up again at some point in the future, and hope you get a chance to talk
Yeah,
to some
definitely.
more of the the Western and SkyEck coaches as well, because there's some good people
Yeah,
out
yeah.
here.
Yeah, like I said, I've been trying. I had a couple that didn't pan
Yeah,
out, for whatever reason, but yeah, I keep asking. So, because like I said, there's a world out there, just a matter of getting there.
yeah,
So, all right, Coach. Thanks a lot.
awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks. If you like this show, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. You can also find me on anti-social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks. This is a message from my Chief Marketing Officer. I think this keeps him happy.